Good evening, meteorologist Robb Ellis here, tracking the flooding that's still ongoing along the White River. Going to get to the crest, what you can expect, what the water levels are expected to be, and what happens at each of those water levels. Let's start with a bit of a broader view, though, because we do have plenty of river flood warnings that are in place for all of our major rivers. If you're not familiar, the White River runs from Muncie all the way down to Anderson through Noblesville, eventually into the north side of Indy, then moves closer to Martinsville and points to the south. That is what we're most concerned about. But the Big Blue, the Flat Rock, the Driftwood, the Whitewater River, all of these are ones where we've been talking about flooding. Now, the good news here is that the Mississinewa, the Whitewater River, and the Flat Rock River have all crested. So we're not going to spend too much time talking about those. The Big Blue River still at moderate flooding, but starting to crest along the river depending upon where you are. The Driftwood River and the Wabash River are going to be flooding, but it's minor flooding here. We'll still continue to watch those and monitor those, but it's the White River that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about. Now, we have seen the crest in Muncie. We have seen the crest in Anderson, by the way, which crested at a record high level. We're also seeing that crest happening as we speak, as I'm recording this on Friday night at record levels. It did surpass the 1913 Great Flood level. Now all of that water continues pushing to the south, expected to crest sometime on Saturday morning at the 82nd Street reporting site there, then continue moving through. The good news is some of the flood control systems that are in place across much of Marion County may mitigate the amount of flooding. Still expecting moderate flooding here sometime late Saturday and into early Sunday morning, and then farther downstream into Martinsville by 8 p.m. So there's your timeline. Let's talk about water levels. For Noblesville, officially, as of this recording, this data is as of about 8 p.m. on Friday night. This data will continue to get updated overnight, but as the time I'm recording this, we have now surpassed the record of 23.8, and the White River at Noblesville is expected to crest at 24.5. Again, this is now record flooding in Noblesville. All of that water continues to push downstream for the White River. So here's what we want to talk about for Indianapolis. As of this recording, we were at 16.5 feet. The crest is expected, as of this recording, to be at 20.5, but this number has continued to nudge its way up. Hopefully, it doesn't get much higher than that. The record for this particular gauge, and this is right at 82nd Street near Keystone. So if you know where the green bridge is that goes over 82nd Street there near the Fashion Mall, Keystone, the crossing here, that's where this gauge is located. The record is 22.4 feet. We are not going to be, at this time, expecting to get to that record level. But what happens at those levels? So let's start with where we are and where we're headed. And at each of these levels, I want to show you what's going to happen, at least according to the National Weather Service. So at 16 feet, which has already been happening late Friday night, some homes in the area are going to start to experience some basement flooding to first floor flooding near the White River. Now, this is mainly at the area near East 116th Street, but also in Ravenswood, right along the White River here. And River Edge is going to start to flood. The road there are going to start to flood. Once we get up to about 18 feet, so sometime overnight tonight and probably into early Saturday morning, we'll reach 18 feet. It's about 1.5 feet from where we are right now. And then we're going to start to see some major damage in the Ravenswood area. Now, considerable flooding is going to be possible near and around the Indianapolis Arts Center and the Edgewater Apartments area, and there have been some evacuations that have been ordered for some of those areas on late Friday evening. Numerous local streets on the north side of Indianapolis are going to be flooded, especially around that White River area. Let's go up a little bit more. Let's go another 1/2 foot higher. Remember, we're still forecasting 20.5. I'm just talking about what happens at 18.5 feet. There's an agricultural levee that may fail once you look in the Connor Prairie farm area in southern Hamilton County. We'll watch that agricultural levee as the waters continue to rise. When we get to 18.75 feet, the flood waters will reach the low steel of the Monon Trail Bridge over the White River. So it's going to start to get that high. That's what the water level that we're talking about here, especially for those of you that know the Monon Trail there, right over the White River. Let's go to 19 feet. When we get to 19 feet, this is when we've got major flooding in progress. 200 to 400 homes here could potentially begin to flood. Water is going to overtop the agricultural levee at Conner Prairie that I mentioned earlier. It's going to be at the top of the levee in Rocky Ripple. Again, this is at 19 feet, so that's at the top of the levee. However, we're still going up another 1.5 feet above this particular level. So the Wharfley levee that was raised and fortified back in June of 2008. This is going to go from the McDonald's in Broad Ripple to Kessler Boulevard. It may be at the top of that levee. We're going to have to really watch that area as well. And any luxury homes that are located on Beach Avenue, they may have as much as 3 feet of water in their basements at 19 feet. Again, this is not where we're expected to stop. This is just at that level. And you could see extensive flooding on both sides of Keystone Avenue, south of East 80th Street here. So not all the way to the south, but in the area around 80th Street on the south side of it. Let's go up one more level. Let's talk about 20 feet. Still expected to go higher than this, but what happens at 20 feet? Well, the floodwaters are going to approach Keystone Avenue north of the White River. So we're talking about the area near 82nd Street that we were talking about. Much of Ravenswood, Mystic Bay, areas on both sides of Keystone Avenue, south of 80th Street, could be flooded by as much as 3 feet of water. That's going to be a significant amount of water at this level. Floodwaters will near residential areas and Shore Acres, Williams Creek Cutoff, east of Merritt Park, and the riverside of Union Chapel Road. And there could be extensive flooding on the riverside of the flood protection in the vicinity of the Indianapolis Arts Center and Edgewater Apartments. Now, as of this recording, which is late Friday night, they were closing the flood protection gates there near the Indianapolis Arts Center. And at this point, at 20 feet, floodwaters would be nearing Arden. So we're looking at an area here. This is going to be, hopefully, we don't get that high, but that's the current forecast. And by the way, this crest value at 20.5 feet has continued to nudge up. Now, if we do get to 21 feet, and I'm going to go over this just because, well, the values have been going up. I wanted to let you know what to prepare for. If we get to 21 feet, this will be the highest flood that we've seen at that particular location since the Great Flood in March of 1913. That'll be in progress if that happens, if we get to that point. Floodwaters could cross Keystone Avenue. This is going to be south of 80th Street, in and around that area. Westfield Drive, Shore Acres. This is the vicinity that we're talking about. Could see extensive flooding of Ravenswood, Mystic Bay, Shore Acres, Rocky Ripple, areas near the Fashion Mall and Clearwater Crossing Shopping Center, and water could be more than a foot deep in the Riviera Club area. So evacuations are likely to exceed 1,000 residents if we get to 21 feet. We're not far off from it. We're expecting to get to 20.5 sometime on Saturday. So we are talking about this general vicinity. We're only going to be about 6 inches off from that. And then at 21 feet, floodwaters approaching critical levels on the Wharfley Levee project. That's the one that I mentioned earlier, from the McDonald's in Broad Ripple all the way over to Kessler Boulevard. So these are the areas that we're talking about. Again, we're sitting here. This is going to continue to rise. Will likely crest sometime on Saturday, and then slowly it's going to begin to go back down. It rises pretty quickly, and then it's slow to come back down. It may not come back down to any lower levels until we get into past the weekend. It's going to take that long. Let me show you this. Now, this is a product. It's still, the National Weather Service is still kind of working on this, but it is going to be able to show you what we're expecting when it comes to the inundation. So let's take you into a few of those areas. Let's start with where we were at that particular location, the White River at 82nd Street Bridge. These are the areas we're expecting to be inundated. So you're looking at the Fashion Mall. That's located right about there. There's the flooding that we're expecting for the river to overtake its banks. When you look farther downstream, we're now looking at Keystone Avenue. Here are both sides of Keystone Avenue. This is 80th Street that we're talking about. So this is the area from White River over to Keystone that could be flooded. Farther to the south we go. This is where the White River goes underneath Keystone. And look at the amount of flooding that could be possible. Again, this is the forecast, but things can still change. We're talking about a good number of areas of homes here in the Rocky Ripple area. So just to put some names to it, this is North Fitch Avenue that goes right along the river, Ralston Avenue. This is Randall Avenue. Doesn't quite reach Keystone at this area, anywhere between 71st and say 75th, but we are looking at Riverwood Park, likely surrounded by water, Kingsley Drive, Randall Drive, and all the way up to 75th Street, very close to the White River there. Farther to the south, I want to take you there because we are expecting the river control the river control devices to be a little bit more helpful here. You don't see the river overtaking its banks as easily, and that will continue farther to the south until we get into areas here from Lester Street, Crown Street, Annette Street, and Riverview Drive. This is going to be west of Canal Boulevard, anywhere between 54th Street to 52nd Street, right along the White River. So this is the area that we're looking at here. This is kind of west of the Butler campus, west side of the canal here. So Butler is going to be, looks like on the higher side, as we know, it kind of sits up from the canal a bit. But all of the area on the west side of the canal over to the river, this could all be flooded. And then farther to the south we go, we could be talking about the areas behind the Art Museum that could get flooded, the Greenway IMA Lake that you're looking at there. Thankfully, the levees, it looks like along the river, are going to do a pretty good job of holding it within its banks. Past Interstate 65, as you know, you go over the river there when you go down Interstate 65 coming from the northwest side. And then part of the Coffin Golf Course here could be underwater. But thankfully, again, you can kind of see some of the levees on this map that do a good job of keeping the river in its banks as it moves through the downtown area and then on the south side of downtown. Now, once you get south from there, it's not going to improve very much. Once we get past the White River, Raymond Street area, you're going to see that there's going to be a lot of area that potentially could get flooded here, even on the south side. So you get past Interstate 74, 465, where those two come together right at 69, and you're looking at some areas here, Concord Street, Epler Avenue and Thompson Road here. There's a little neighborhood that looks like it may be in the inundation area from the White River on the south side of the city, and then eventually this heads into down farther south into Morgan County. But it's the area in Broad Ripple and Rocky Ripple that we're going to be most talking about, as well as into Ravenswood. So again, when we're looking at these areas, this is just kind of an experimental product that the National Weather Service has, but there's an area near the Art Museum, the Arts Center, I should say, that's up along the White River here that may have some problems with flooding, and then of course a good bit of inundation in several of these areas along the White River. Of course, we're going to keep providing you with updated information. Make sure you keep it tuned to WTHR for all the latest. We'll try to provide you with that, as much information as we possibly can, as we continue to watch the White River begin to overspill its banks through the course of this coming weekend. Stay safe.